So there'll be some repetition, but repetition is a good thing. Yadyadacharite shashtas tatta devataro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokastadanuvartate. Yadyadacharite shashtas tatta devataro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokastadanuvartate. Yadyadacharite shashtas tatta devataro janaha Sayat pramanam kurute lokastadanuvartate. Anybody like to repeat?
यद्यद् आचरति श्रेष्ठः तत्तदेवतरो जनः स यत्प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकास्तदनुवर्तते.
Thank you, Dr. Vilas Prabhu. Anybody else?
यद्यदाचरति श्रेष्ठस्तत्तदेव तरो जनः सायत् प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस्तदनुवर्तते.
Thank you. Is that Subhu or
Yes, Prabhuji.
others?
यद्यद् आचरति श्रेष्ठस्तत्तद् एव तरो जनः स यत्प्रमाणं कुरुते लोकस्तद् अनुवर्तते.
Thank you, Anita Mataji. Very nice hearing your sweet voice. Anybody else, or should I proceed if everybody's had a chance? Okay. So, word by, I'll say the verse and then the word by word. Yadyadacharite shastas tatta devataro janaha sayat pramananam kurute lokastadanuvartate. Yat, whatever acharite he does, shasta, a respectable leader, tat, that, and that alone, eva, certainly, itaraha, common, janaha, person, sa, he, yat, whichever, pranam, pramanam, example, kurute, does perform, loka, all the world, tat, that, anuvartate, follows in the footsteps. Narottam Vilasparu, do I need to wear headphones or something like that for better sound, or
No, it's perfectly clear too.
Okay, thank you. Let me know.
Yeah.
Translation by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamne. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvashe Shunyavadi Pashtataya Deshatarane. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Translation: whatever action a great man performs, common men follow. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Purport by His Divine Grace. People in general always require a leader who can teach the public by practical behavior. A leader cannot teach the public to stop smoking if he smokes himself. Lord Chaitanya said that a teacher should behave properly before he begins teaching. One who teaches in that way is called an acharya, or the ideal teacher. Therefore, a teacher must follow the principles of Shastra, scripture, to teach the common man. The teacher cannot manufacture rules against the principles of revealed scriptures. The revealed scriptures like Manu Samhita and similar others are considered the standard books to be followed by human society. Thus, the Lord's teaching should be based on the principles of such standard Shastras. One who desires to improve himself must follow the standard rules as they are practiced by the great teachers. Srimad Bhagavatam also affirms that one should follow in the footsteps of great devotees, and that is the way of progress on the path of spiritual realization. The king or the executive head of a state, the father and the school teacher are all considered to be natural leaders of the innocent people in general. All such natural leaders have a great responsibility to their dependents. Therefore, they must be conversant with the standard books of moral and scriptural codes. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary words, exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So, very important and relevant statement by Lord Shri Krishna. So this comes in chapter 3, and it's referencing work as a means of dedication to Lord Sri Krishna. So I was inspired to read this verse to quite a bit to what was happening in our country this last weekend. You know, we're used to seeing images of things like this, you know, in other countries. So this is Washington, D.C., Capitol Hill. And you can see a massive crowd next to the Washington Monument. So we're used to that. And we're used to seeing pictures like this occurring elsewhere in the world, here in the US. You know, like kind of rampant lawlessness and things like this, you know. We wouldn't think twice if we see this in some other part of the world. Here are the leaders of Congress taking shelter inside the building. And here are the people who are defending from the crowds coming in. Here's the scene outside. Protesters with full gas masks and military paraphernalia battling against, you know, the police. So seeing these images is very disturbing, I would say. Very, very disturbing. So I was contemplating, you know, what's the situation here? What happened? So that's why I picked this word. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow. Whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So, you know, like Srila Prabhupada says, it's a fact that whenever some kind of greatness is perceived by others, that the people in general try to follow that greatness. You know, the society is full of, as we heard this morning, full of leaders, some big, some small. You know, politicians are leaders, president, the congressman, the Supreme Court justices, they're leaders. Police officers are leaders. Heads of business are leaders. Teachers are leaders. Parents are leaders. High school seniors are leaders, etc. Practically everyone, this verse is meant for all of us. Everyone is leading someone else in some way or another. But in a society like we live in, why is it that with so many leaders, our society has no focus? It looks like chaos. And there's so much unhappiness. Why? Does anybody want to guess why that's occurring? Why is it that we have so many leaders, but we have so much disturbance and chaos? Nobody's taking me up on my question, so I'll just go ahead.
Oh, maybe the leader itself is chaotic.
Yes.
Yes.
So, you know, the problem, like Pratamadas Prabhu said, is that every leader is actually infatuated with their opulence and ruling power. You can see this in big scenarios like the heads of government, and you can see it in small scenarios like parents, students, all that, right? The parent is overcome with the power they have over their child. The husband may be infatuated with the power he has over his spouse. The teachers with the power that they have over students. And therefore, you can take along this analogy in many different directions. You know, and we see that our leaders, like the picture I just showed you, that our leaders are busy fighting other leaders. There's an intoxication of power, wealth, fame, because we're hankering for that which is, like using Srila Prabhupada's word, we're hankering for that which is temporary. And eternal existence is slipping through our hands, like sands through, you know, the hourglass in a time hourglass. Time is the most powerful force and time as an energy of Lord Krishna. So in every society, we have people that are considered leaders or superior personalities. Lord Krishna is saying, whatever the topmost leaders practice, because they're considered great, everybody else will emulate and try to do similar practice. Therefore, the natural conclusion, if the leader is an ideal person, then if they are ideal, then the followers also become ideal. And if that is not the case, then the followers, they're also of the same type. And we see this, in pictures like this. So, because Srila Prabhupada points out, if we don't follow the right person, practiced by great teachers, commonly this word, great teachers, is translated as Mahajan. Mahajan. If we don't follow the great teachers, then however great I may be in the estimation of the general public, that's going to be a path of challenges. And here's something that's often quoted by Srila Prabhupada. It's actually from the Mahabharata. And this is where this term, Mahajano Yenagata Sapantaha, comes in. It's Yudhishthira Maharaj who's saying this. So he's saying, and for the sake of time, I will not go over Sanskrit, but I'll focus on the English. Dry arguments are inconclusive. A great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great sage, meaning a saint. Simply by studying the Vedas, which are variegated, one cannot come to the right path by which religious principles are understood. The solid truth of religious principles is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated, self-realized person. Consequently, as the Shastras confirm, one should accept whatever path, progressive path the Mahajanas advocate. So Yudhishthira Maharaj in Mahabharata says this. So we have to follow, according to Yudhishthira Maharaj and what Srila Prabhupada himself said in this verse, we have to follow the path of great personalities. Dharmasya tattvam nihite. Dharmasya tattvam nihitam. We have to do that. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's all, and in all of our Shastras, it's advised that principles, especially spiritual principles, because Yudhishthira Maharaj is saying that one can come up reading the literature, spiritual literature by one's own self, and one could be incorrect. That religious principles should be followed by taking the example of the Mahajanas, the great personalities. Krishna in the Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appeared just to show the example of the perfect authority. And he says this here, right? In chapter 3, he says, O son of Parth, there's no work prescribed for me within all the 3 planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor do I have a need to obtain anything, yet I'm engaged in duties. For if I ever failed, certainly all men would follow me, and the world would be put into ruination. So you see that? So Lord Krishna appeared in this world just to show the example of a perfect authority. Of course, he's the supermost being, but still, and people have to follow the path. One cannot understand the absolute truth of the instructions of the Satyam Param Dhimahi, the absolute personality of Godhead, just by our logic. One has to follow authorities. Mahajana yenas gata sepantaha, as Yudhishthira Maharaj says. Because sometimes we may be misled if we just read the scriptures totally on our own, especially nowadays. I mean, who are the Mahajanas? Who are the Mahajanas? So here's a list of Mahajanas in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, verse 20-21. So once again, for sake of time, translation. Lord Brahma, Bhagwan Narad, Lord Shiva, the 4 Kumaras, Lord Kapila Dev, the son of Devahuti, Swambhu Manu, Prahlad Maharaj, Janak Maharaj, grandfather Bhishma, Bali Maharaj, Shukadev, Goswami, and I. Who's I? Does anybody know who I is? So who's the final 12th person? Who's the 12th personality that's being referenced here, where they said I? So I is Yamraj, the Lord of Death. And I, myself, know the real religious principles. My dear servants, this transcendental religious principle, which is known as Bhagavad Dharma, or surrender unto the Supreme Lord and love for Him, is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. It is very confidential and difficult for ordinary human beings to understand. But if by chance one fortunately understands it, he is immediately liberated, thus he returns back to home. So, so he himself, Yamraj, is saying, this is difficult for quote unquote an ordinary human being to understand. That means since we're covered by the gunas, goodness, passion, ignorance, it's not so easy. So he's saying that. So Srila Prabhupada says, if this principle is very rarely understood, what is the use of it? In answer, Yamraj states herein that this religious principle is understandable if one follows the parampara system of Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, 4 Kumaras, the Mahajanas. That's how you can try to understand some of these principles. And this is very important to follow in the footsteps of great devotees as they've understood the scriptures. Because why? Because this is the age we live in. It's in Bhagavatam 1.1, verse 10, chapter 1, verse 10 of Canto 1. It says, O learned men, in this iron age of Kali, men almost always have short lives. They are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, disturbed. Upadhrutaha, disturbed. Above all, disturbed. Srila Prabhupada says some very wonderful things in here. The devotees of the Lord are always anxious for spiritual improvement of the general public. But the people in this age are lazy, and not only materially, but also in matters of self-realization. Human life is especially meant for self-realization. That is to say, men should come to know what he is, what the world is, and what the supreme truth is, etc. But the problem in this age, as you see, is people are disturbed. People are disturbed. Look at that. This is the age we live in, the age of Kali. Short lives, quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, disturbed. So, this is a challenge. How does a leader, whether big or small, we have seen examples of how leaders, big and small, work in this world, and how things have gotten confused and disjointed and not wholesome. But there are examples from scripture, shastras, of leaders who actually did follow some guidelines, scriptural guidelines, and examples of great personalities, and sought counsel of great personalities. So I'm going to speak based on the activities of 3 devotee leaders: Bharat Maharaj, Yudhishthira Maharaj, and Maharaj Parikshit. So we heard some of this morning about Yudhishthira Maharaj, but I'll bring in some additional. So first, we'll go with Bharat Maharaj. So Bharat Maharaj is the younger brother of Lord Ram. And you can find this book in Veda base. It's Ramayana retold by Krishna Dharma, and it's very beautiful. So somehow through political machinations, intrigue in the court, there were different wives for different princes. And one of the wives, her name was Keiki. She somehow contrived to get her husband to remove the eldest brother, Lord Ram, as the next candidate to take over the kingship once the current king left his body. And the current king was not happy to give one of his wives, Kaiki, that's her name right here, such a promise, but he had no choice. The will of providence required him to do so due to some past promises that he had made to her. And that was not enough for the wife of the mother of one of the princes. Bharat Maharaj's mother, Kaiki, she wanted more because she knew if the king departed, then Lord Ram, the eldest brother, would become the king. So she requested that the second thing is Lord Ram and his current wife, Sita Devi, need to be banished from the kingdom. And I won't go over it. It's a pretty heart-rending scene where the king has to do that. And also where Lord Ram accepts that decision very wonderfully so that the king does not break his vow. So ultimately, the ministers say, well, we have no current king because the king died after he made such promises. And Lord Ram left, so there was nobody. So they said, how can we function if there's no leadership here? So they sent some ministers to go and I'm going to try to find the part where they say this to the assembly in general. So here's in a land without a king, even the rain would not fall in proper time, and the crops would fail. Sons would disobey their fathers and wives, their husbands. There could be no personal property without a protector, and men could not sleep in peace. Everything would become chaotic, and anarchy would soon prevail. Like fishes, men would devour one another, atheism would become prominent, and godless and misbehaved men would become leaders. Even as eyes protect the body, so the king is ever vigilant to protect the people. The king is truthfulness and virtue incarnate. He's mother and father and best benefactor of all men. All principal gods reside in the body of king. Indeed, he's a representative of the Supreme Person of Godhead. Therefore, O Vashisht, he was the chief minister, have Bharat and Shatrughan brought home. Those are Lord Ram's younger brothers. So do you see here how the ministers, the saintly personality said, the king is truthfulness and virtue incarnate, and he is like the eyelid protecting the eye. So eventually Bharat, who was visiting another province in India, came back. He was brought back. He had no idea what was going on. So he came back and he saw that the city was in a total state of disarray. And he saw that all the courtesans and all the king's entourage were despairing. So he eventually wound up being in the room of his mother. And he asked, how is it that the king is not seated here? Where is my pious father? Why do I find everyone looking so disconsolate and not speaking? I long to clasp my father's feet to me. Tell me, gentle mother. So his mother, Kaikeyi, said, your father has left his body. And Bharat subsequently became very distraught, very upset, and started crying. And she said, get up. Why are you lying like there? Virtual souls are not overwhelmed by grief. Steady your mind. So he was, he said, well, my father had intended to install Lord Ram as the prince. And I came here, but I don't see my father or Lord Ram. So he was confused. And he asked his mother to announce that Bharat is here. Please come meet me. So then she relates the second part of her request to her king, that Prince Ram, Sita, and Lakshman left the city clad in tree barks, meaning the outer part of the tree. They've gone to a distant forest and remained there for 14 years. And so Bharat was amazed. He said, Ram has committed no sin. The king was intent upon installing him. And so she then relates that the king granted her 2 boons, were 2 wishes which he had promised. And so he became overwrought. Bharat, he said, what came into your mind, O cruel woman, that you would do such an act? What gain is there for me in having sovereignty of the earth when I stand deprived? You know, he says this. So he's lamenting here. He's just lamenting that this situation has gotten to be that terrible. So, and then he gets angry and he states, and I've skipped to the next chapter. If any of you haven't read this, it's beautiful and it's accurate and it's very poetic the way this is written. It's called Ramayana Retold. I think the children read it last summer. He said, I cannot stand by and watch the path of morality abandoned as a result of your sinful desires. The eternal moral code prescribes that the king's eldest son should inherit the throne, especially when that son is most highly qualified. So Bharat is speaking about Lord Ram, and beloved of all the people. I shall doubtlessly bring back Ram from the forest. O evil-minded one, you will never see me installed as a king. So he says this, and then they went ahead and did the funeral rites for their father. And then, because that had to be done, because that had been waiting for Bharat, who had now become the eldest, to do the ceremony. So they took their father's ashes and placed them in the river Sarayu, along with, then they made their way back to the city called Ayodhya. And Bharat's brother, Shatrughan, said, how strange it is that mighty Ram stands exiled by the words of a woman. I cannot understand why Lakshman did not forcibly restrain the king. Lakshman is their brother. So Lakshman was with Ram and Bharat and Shatrughan were together. So they were separated. Seeing him to be straying from the path of righteousness, Shatrughan is mystified that such injustice could have taken place. How did Ram allow himself to be taken away, be sent away? Which, when Ram went away, Dasrath Maharaj, the king, lamented and left his body. Shatrughan was saying, if Ram had been present, this wouldn't have happened. So then Shatrughan and Bharat came back to the king's palace from the funeral grounds, and they saw one of the servants of Bharat's mother. Her name is Mantra. She was kind of like the mastermind for this political intrigue in the court of Dashrath Maharaj. He saw she was wearing very fancy clothing, and they immediately realized that she was the person who was responsible. And so Shatrughan, the younger brother of Bharat, grabbed a hold of this individual, Mantra, who was the advisor to Bharat's mother. And he said, this wicked one shall now reap the fruits of her evil deeds. She has brought acute and unbearable pain in all this house, as well as to the citizens. Watch now how I punish her. So Mantra starts screaming and everybody runs away. You can imagine the scene. It's very dramatic. And Shatrughan dragged her, Mantra, across the floor, and all of her ornaments broke and spread on the blue marble floor. Here's the poetry. Look at this. Blue marble floor, like so many stars in the sky. Ramayana is very poetic. And so Bharat's mother, Keiki, heard the screaming. She came to help. And when she was trying to help her servant, Mantra, Shatrughan, the brother, began chastising her with harsh words, and Keiki was pained. It hurt her. And so Bharat, now this is the example I wanted to make of how a leader reacts to difficult situations. Bharat said to Shatrughan, even when sinful, women should never be slain. You should therefore forgive this servant. Indeed, I would have slain my own mother, meaning his mother Keiki, if eternal moral law did not forbid it. and such an act would never be pleasing to Ram. Our pious brother would never speak with us again if he heard that we killed this woman. So the teachings of the scriptures are basically twofold, whether it's Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar of Instruction, the Bible, Quran, all scriptures will always say the same thing, which is how a leader, and all of us, whether we're big leaders or small leaders, should ask ourselves, how can we serve Lord Krishna? That's question one. Question two is, how can I please Lord Krishna? If we do that, then our act will be correct act, and it will be for the benefit of everybody. That's why he says, certainly such an act would never be pleasing to our Lord Ram. He would never speak with us again if we kill this woman. So this is an example of how a devotee by nature is always thinking, can I serve the Lord? Can I please him? And we can all do that in every activity. For example, if there's something we have to say to somebody and it's a harsh thing, then we should ask ourselves, am I the correct person to speak it? Is this the right time to speak it? Is it pleasing to this person? Is it of benefit? And is this the right time? Ultimately, all these questions are saying, is this a service I'm doing for the Lord? And is it a pleasing service to the Lord? And if the answer is no, then we ask somebody else or we wait for the right time. So that's example one of how that idea of pleasing the Lord is a quality of a leader. Here's the other example. So the second example is, trying to get to it. Second example is of Yudhishthira Maharaj. We just started, we're just finishing chapter 8, Canto 1 in Bhagavatam class. So we're talking about Yudhishthira Maharaj. And so here's Yudhishthira Maharaj. And I'll start just with a section of it. So Yudhishthira Maharaj and the Pandavas had just engaged in a battle. And in the battle, a lot of people passed away. Millions of souls left their body. And as a consequence, Yudhishthira Maharaj, being the eldest and the most respected out of all of the Pandava princes, and the Pandavas were the one who won the battle. Being the eldest and being the representative of dharma, meaning appropriate action based on religious principle, he was devastated. He was overwhelmed that so many people had died on the Pandavas or in his account just so he and his brothers could be kings of the kingdom. You see the difference between that and this? Total difference in mood. So ultimately, they walked across the battlefield and they went to where their dying grandfather, whose name is Bhishma Dev, was laying and with mortal injury due to being penetrated by arrows from the bow of Arjuna, his grandson. So Maharaj, the Pandavas, the sons of Maharaj Pandu, their father was Pandu, were sitting silently near Lord Bhishma Dev. And Lord Sri Krishna was there as well. Silently nearby, overtaken with, and you can just put yourself in that situation, what it felt like to have won a kingdom, but your grandfather's lying there, dead, dying, and that all millions of people have passed away. They were overtaken with affection for their dying grandfather. Seeing this, Bhishma Dev congratulated them with feeling. There were tears of ecstasy in his eyes, for he was overwhelmed by love and affection. Now imagine you're lying mortally wounded. You haven't ate or drank for days because Bhishma Dev had this protection that as long as he desires to stay in the body, nobody can kill him unless if he allows his soul to depart the body. So he was there awaiting Lord Krishna and his grandchildren, the Pandavas. Bhishma Dev said, "Oh, what terrible sufferings and what terrible injustices you good souls, meaning the Pandavas, suffered for being sons of religion personified. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations, yet you were protected by the Brahmanas, God, and religion." So this part I wanted to read. What terrible sufferings and what terrible injustices you good souls suffer for being sons of religion personified. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations, yet you were protected by the Brahmanas, the saintly personalities, Bhagwan, and religion. So Srila Prabhupada's purport is, so this is how a leader, Bhishma Dev is instructing Yudhishthira Maharaj, this is how a leader should act. 3 things. Consult the saintly personalities, consult the scriptures, and consult Paramatma in your heart. Maharaj Yudhishthira was disturbed due to the great massacre in the battle of Kurukshetra. Bhishma Dev could understand this, and therefore he spoke first of the terrible sufferings of Maharaj Yudhishthira. He was put into difficulty by injustice only, and the battle of Kurukshetra was fought to counteract this injustice. Therefore, he should not regret the great massacre. Bhishma, they wanted to point out particularly that they were protected by the Brahmanas, the saintly personalities, the Lord, and religious principles. As long as they were protected by these 3 important items, there was no cause for disappointment. So Bhishma Dev encouraged the king Yudhishthira to decrease his sadness. Srila Prabhupada says, as long as a person is full cooperation with the wishes of the Lord, guided by Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, strictly following religious principles, there's no cause for sadness. Now, it is a nature of the devotee, one of the qualities of devotee is compassionate. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, when love is directed towards God, it is called bhakti. When that same love is directed towards others, it's called compassion. So here's second example, how a leader can participate as yad yad chayate shastas tat tad evataro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokas tat anuvartate. This pramanam means scriptures. And it's consistent with all the other things that we read. So then the third one, I'll go back actually to this one. Sorry, there are lots of tabs. So, there. Sorry, I'm trying to go back. Won't let me. So later on, Bhishma Dev tells them that it's just the will of the Lord manifesting in time energy. So he details out all the sufferings that the Pandavas had. This is all due to inevitable time under whose control everyone in every planet is carried, just as clouds carried by the wind. So Prabhupada points out inevitable kala or time controls even the action of air and other elements. It's a representative of the Lord within the material world. Thus, Yudhishthira Maharaj should not be disturbed. So one should not be, so Srila Prabhupada explains this thoroughly, that how Yudhishthira Maharaj was acting consistently with the footsteps, following the sadhus, the shastra, and God himself, Krishna. Krishna desired it, and so it occurred. So next example, that was example 2. Example 3 is Sri Maharaj Parikshit. So Maharaj Parikshit was in the dynasty of the Pandavas. His mother was Draupadi. I'm sorry, Uttara. And so he was the residing king of the world. And he one time was out in the forest, and he was walking and walking, and it became hot and he became thirsty. He came upon the hermitage of a great sage. And the sage was in, the saintly personality was in meditation, deeply, absorbed in meditation, not aware of his external body. And the king was, as it states here, whose palate was dry from thirst, asked this sage for some water. But the sage failed to respond. He didn't offer the king, meaning Maharaj Parikshit, the grandson of the Pandavas. So the king was not received like a king would normally be received. No place to sit, no water, no welcoming, nothing. So the king, Parikshit Maharaj, seemingly became angry. And the king was so angry that he picked up a dead snake and he placed the dead snake around the shoulders of the saintly personality. And then he returned back to his own palace. And when he was coming back, he started to, within himself, he was contemplating, what had happened. Was a sadhu, actually, saintly personality, actually absorbed in meditation on the Lord, or whether he was just faking some sort of trance so that he would not have to deal with, the lower kshatriyas? Kind of like the pastime of Lord Krishna sending the gopas to ask for some food from the yogic Brahmins, the Brahmins that are doing sacrifice, and they neglected the Lord Krishna's friends. So the king was kind of contemplating this. Now, while the king was contemplating this, there was the son of the saintly personality, and his name was Shringi. And since he was a son of a Brahmin, he had potency. In the old days, you were not a Brahmin simply by birth, but by actual spiritual potency. So he looked at his father and he saw the snake. And he said, oh, look, that what the king has done. What kind of ruler is this? They're not functioning correctly. That after Lord Krishna has left, because by that time Lord Krishna had left when Maharaj Parikshit, the king, was the ruler. And punish them, just witness my power, my Brahman potency. So he touched the river, Kaushik, and said a curse. And the curse was, on the seventh day from today, a snake bird, which is a type of bird, will bite the most wretched one of their dynasty, the king, because his having broken the laws of etiquette by insulting my father. By insulting my father, he's broken these rules. Now, speed forward to next chapter, chapter 19. So eventually, once Maharaj Parikshit came to his home, he realized that he had committed something very terrible against the sage, the sadhu who was performing this puja, meditation. So the king became distressed. And he said, due to my neglecting injunction of the Supreme Lord, I must certainly expect some difficulty overcome me in the near future. I now desire without reservation that the calamity come now, for in this way I may be freed of the sinful action, not commit such an offense again. I'm uncivilized and sinful due to my neglect of Brahmanical culture, God consciousness, cow protection. See, the same things that Bhishma Dev said to Yudhishthira Maharaj, that you're doing right if your action is pleasing to the Brahmins, Lord, and consistent with the scriptures. And cow protection is what the scriptures tell us. He says, therefore, I wish that my kingdom's strength and riches burn up immediately by the fire of the Brahman's wrath, so that in future I may not be guided by such inauspicious attitude. While the king was thus repenting, he received news of his imminent death, which would be due to the bite of a snake bird, occasioned by the curse spoken by the sage's son. The king accepted this as good news, for it to be the cause of his indifference toward worldly things. So Srila Prabhupada in his purport says for this verse that Maharaj Parikshit was actually fortunate to get a 7-day notice of his inevitable death, right? Because that's what the son of the sadhu had cursed him. But for the rest of us, we have no such definite, notice. An email doesn't come in saying, hey, in 7 days, you're gone. Even though death is inevitable for every mortal being. And, so we forget to prepare ourselves for such an eventuality of going back to the spiritual world. So Maharaj Parikshit then says in text 5, he sat down firmly, his activities described, he sat down firmly on the bank of the Ganges to concentrate his mind in Krishna consciousness, rejecting all other practices of self-realization, because transcendental loving service to Krishna is the greatest achievement, superseding all other methods. So here's the idea. When we are called upon to be leaders, be it big ones like governmental leaders, small ones like in our family, or in our school, or in our work, we should define what success is. We should have a clear definition of success. Is success material success? That's what we're trying to achieve? And if so, then that success will have material consequences. Or is that success spiritual success? That how may I, remember we talked about the two main things we always have to ask ourselves. How may I serve Lord Krishna, and how may I please Lord Krishna? That's what we have. So for a devotee like Maharaj Parikshit, none of the material successes were as desirable as going back to the spiritual world. The devotees have been told in the scriptures that none of the planets within the innumerable universes is suitable for a devotee. So the devotee always wants to go back home to Godhead, just to become an associate of an associate of an associate of the Lord. So you see here, this quality came out, this desire to have loving service of the Lord, even though in my tremendous distress. So he goes on to say in verse 16, offering obeisance unto all you Brahmanas, I pray that if I should take my birth in the material world, I will have complete attachment to the unlimited Lord Krishna, association with his devotees, and friendly relations with all beings. That a devotee of the Lord is the only perfect living being is explained here by Maharaj Parikshit. A devotee of the Lord is no one's enemy, although there may be many enemies of the Lord. A devotee of the Lord is no one's enemy. So if another devotee insults us, they don't become our enemy. If another devotee neglects us, they don't become subject to my neglect. That's a devotee. Here is another very nice section. Another and the most important function of devotees is to have complete attachment for Lord Sri Krishna, the Father of all living beings. As a good son of the Father behaves in friendly way with all his brothers, so also the devotee of the Lord, being a good son of the Supreme Father, Lord Sri Krishna sees all other living beings in relationship with the Supreme Father. We do that, this won't be occurring. That won't be occurring. So, Krishna's mercy and protection sometimes come in mysterious ways, as we've seen in the pastime of Maharaj Parikshit, in the pastime of Yudhishthira Maharaj and his lamentation about how so many men died on his behalf. The pastime of Bharat Maharaj, where he was totally innocent and he came in, and at that point he was the senior most amongst the princes and was requested to take leadership, but he was blamed by everybody everybody in that city for being the author of the disaster that happened where Dashrath Maharaj left his body and Lord Ram was exiled out of the kingdom. Even though Bharat Maharaj was totally innocent. And you saw in that example with Shatrughan, where Shatrughan wanted to kill the maidservant of Kaiki, the mother of Bharat Maharaj, because she had caused so much political intrigue and so much distress for everybody. Bharat Maharaj did not let his brother do it. He said this would be displeasing to Lord Ram, Bhagwan. And if that's the case, I'm not going to do it. So sometimes Krishna's mercy, as we see in this very trying circumstance of these three leaders, comes in mysterious ways that us who are conditioned cannot understand. No one can understand. Prahlad Maharaj, Lord Bhishma Dev says this to Yudhishthira Maharaj. He says, no one can know the plan of Lord Sri Krishna. Even though great philosophers try, they're bewildered. So Bhishma Dev said that to Yudhishthira Maharaj. No one can know the plan of the Lord. So the material world in our scriptures is sometimes referred to as land of doubt, whereas the spiritual world is a world of faith. So the process of going back to that divine spiritual world requires increasing development of faith. Lord Sri Chaitanya said, Shraddha is firm faith that by rendering transcendental loving service to Krishna, one automatically performs all subsidiary activities. Such faith is favorable to discharge of devotional service. Such faith is favorable to discharge of devotional service. So we need to always be focused on these essential qualities of is my action going to serve Lord Krishna? Is it going to be pleasing to Lord Krishna? Is my action consistent with what a saintly personality, my guru, other elevated devotees would tell me? Is it consistent with what the scriptures state? Is it something that will please the Paramatma, Lord Sri Krishna, within my heart? If the answer is yes, then I will do it. If the answer is no, then I will neglect it. I will find a better solution. So, what are the essential steps when we're in a position of leadership? We should become aware that our goal needs to be Krishna, not some material success. Material success is temporary and oftentimes difficult to predict due to the nature of action and reaction in the material world. Because think of it, how can Maharaj Parikshit go into a forest and be so thirsty that when he comes out, he puts a snake around a saintly personality's shoulder who's meditating. Yet that same king, when he's cursed to die, sits for 7 days without eating or drinking or resting or taking any comfort for the body. Nothing. How did that happen? That same personality who just committed such an offense could do that. So we should be aware that Krishna's goal of our life, that's number one. Number two, we should offer as many acts as we can towards Krishna's service. Because when we do that, when we do service for Krishna and the devotees, we activate our relationship with the Lord. And we start asking the Lord internally. We start communicating with the Paramatma for guidance internally. We're activating it by doing that service. So we offer as many acts of service as we can. Thirdly, we have to train our mind to connect with Krishna through devotional sentiments, devotional thoughts. We have to convince ourselves by the acts, the regulative principles, not the 4 regulative principles of being a human being, but the regulative principles of hearing and chanting as described in Canto 1, Chapter 1. Those are the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. We have to connect ourselves with that. Fourthly, we should take unlimited shelter of bhakti under the guidance of the acharyas. And finally, most importantly, we should pray. And we should pray with our heart that somehow or other I have pleased Lord Krishna with my service. And I'm serving him in a merciful, compassionate way. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sorry for taking so long. I hope I was able to speak something that was meaningful and pleasing to Lord Krishna and to the devotees. Any comments, reflections, questions? We'll have Arthik otherwise.
Hi, Krishna Prabhuji. I just wanted to share my appreciation on how thoughtful of a class this was and how you were able to pull in from so many scriptural references. And yeah, just thank you for that. And yeah, Hi, Krishna.
I found it to be a very humbling class.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, additions? Okay.
I just wanted to second what Madhavi, Premarupa Madhavi Mataji just said. It was a very nice class, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Talking about all kings who have exemplified the right behavior, and you gave very nice examples. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
I was just elaborating or adding more to what you had already said this morning so nicely.
Yeah, way better than that. It was very nice, Prabhuji, today. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? So we should just remember just two simple things. How can I serve Krishna at every moment? How can I please Krishna in every moment? When we do that, our absorption is immediately connected to Krishna. How can I serve Krishna without any personal agenda? How can I please him without any personal agenda? If we do that, we're guaranteed by the Bhagavad Gita that the answer will be benefit for everybody. Okay, so I understand that Subbu and his family are going to sing Kirtan for the deity's pleasure. And then, let's see, and then I think Nitya will be singing Narsingadev Arati prayer. So please go ahead. I'll stop screen sharing Nartam Vilas Prabhu. If you can show temple deity.
Prabhuji, are we supposed to end by 12:50?
Yes, because pujaris, since they don't have a good way of knowing when you're done, they just proceed with their service on schedule.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Namaste Saraswati Gauravani Prachari Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatyad Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jai Sacinandana Bhagwan ki Jai. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Thank you, Subhu. Very beautiful kirtan, very meditative. Just fantastic. Love how your family is doing kirtan together. We have lots of families with children, and it's really enlivening to see how the children are growing in their Krishna consciousness in spite of COVID and everything, and how you're all doing this together. Keep it up. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
So next is none other than Her Grace Nitya. Nitya, are you ready?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Oh, Hari Bol. Here's another wonderful family that will chant for the pleasure of the Lord. Please go ahead and proceed. Wow, you got glasses now. What's the deal?
Yeah.
Too much studying. Okay. Hare Krishna. Go ahead and start, Nitya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Yato yato yami tato narsimha. Yato yato yami tato narsimha. Bahe narsimha he bahe narsimha. Bahe narsimha he bahe narsimha. Narasimha vadim sharanam prapade. Narasimhamadim sharanam prapade. Avakara kamala varinaha. Adabhuta shringa. Dalita hiranyakashipu. Tanavringa keshavadrika. Narohani rupa. Jayo Jagadish Hare. Jayo Jagadish Hare. Jayo Jagadish Hare. Tava kara kamala varinaha. Adbhuta shringa. Dalita hiranyakashipu. Tanuvringa keshavadrika. Narahari rupa. Jayo Jagadish Hare. Jayo Jagadish Hare. Jayo Jagadish Hare. Jayo Narsimha Dev, Narsimha Dev, Narsimha Dev. Jayo Narsimha Dev. Jayo Narsimha Dev, Narsimha Dev, Narsimha Dev. Jayo Narsimha Dev. Jayo Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj. Jayo Prahlad Maharaj. Jayo Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj. Jayo Prahlad Maharaj. Jayo Jayo Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jayo Prabhupada. Jayo Jayo Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jayo Jayo Prabhupada. Jayo Jayo Gurudev, Gurudev, Gurudev. Jayo Gurudev. Jayo Jayo Gurudev, Gurudev, Gurudev. Jayo Jayo Gurudev. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jayo Nitai Sacinandana, Nitai Sacinandana, Nitai Sacinandana. Gora Hari. Jayo Nitai Sacinandana, Nitai Sacinandana, Nitya Sacinandana, Gaura Hari. श्री विघ्नाश श्री लक्ष्मी नरसिंह भगवान की जय। की जय। की जय। गुरुदेव की जय।
Krishna, Nitya, and family, Pavamana Pravandiksha, Mataji, thank you.
Krishna.
Very nice, Nitya. You're becoming very professional. You even sit like a professional the way you play the harmonium. Very nice.
Please bless her, Prabhuji.
You should bless me. She's the devotee from birth. I'm not. So